The article in this reading unit does not contain more information about why it's important to wash our hands during the pandemic. Yes, the article describes a study involving hand washing, but the point of the study was to look at whether people will be more motivated by positive or negative messages. I put together this reading unit for my students last summer in July 2019. I had no idea how relevant it would become. In this video, I'll summarize the information in the article and explain the features of the exercises in the reading unit. In the notes below, you can find a link that you can click on to download the complete unit for free to use with your students. Here is a summary of the study that is the basis of the article. Several years ago, long before the coronavirus pandemic, researchers found that restaurant workers and hospital staff members were very negligent about washing their hands. According to the researchers, about 62% of restaurant workers do not wash their hands after using the restroom. This could explain why every year 60,000 people who ate in restaurants had to go to the hospital with the disease that they had picked up there. And that's not all. Amazingly, almost 61% of hospital workers also did not wash their hands properly. These days with the coronavirus, although everyone seems to be aware of the importance of washing their hands, getting them to remember to do it can be a challenge. This article discusses a clever study that was conducted to find a way to reverse this trend by comparing positive and negative messages. The results from the study can give us some interesting insights into how we might best motivate people to conduct themselves in many different situations. Spoiler alert, I'm going to summarize the study now. Basically, the researchers wanted to determine whether a carrot or stick approach would be most effective. To get hospital workers to wash their hands, researchers first tried a kind of stick approach. In every room with a patient, there was a sink and some soap, along with a sign reminding the employees to wash their hands. The researchers installed 21 video cameras above the sinks and focused these cameras on the sinks. Every time a doctor or nurse or other medical worker entered a patient's room, a doorway motion sensor sent a signal to a research assistant in India via the web. These assistants watched the recordings to see if the workers washed their hands before working with a patient. The medical staff knew that someone was watching to see if they did this. Signs warned them that something negative could happen if they didn't wash their hands. They could spread disease. This was a stick approach. Surprisingly, only about 10% of these hospital staff members washed their hands after entering a patient's room, even though they knew someone was monitoring them via the video cameras. The researchers then tried a different approach that involved a kind of reward. They put an electronic message board above the door in every room. Every time a medical staff member washed their hands, a positive message, such as, "You're doing great," would come up on the message board. Also, it showed what percent of staff members during that shift washed their hands and what percent during the week had. Thus, if a staff member washed his or her hands, the number on the board went up. The results were amazing. Almost 90% of the staff members washed their hands. In other words, it improved from 10% before the message board went up to 90% with it. The The researchers explained the good results from the positive message board this way. Every time the staff members washed their hands, they received immediate positive feedback. This positive feedback triggered a pleasure signal in their brains, which they enjoyed getting. In other words, they tended to repeat this action in order to experience that pleasure signal. After a while, it became a habit, and they continued to do it even after the electronic boards were removed. For the exercises in this unit, I wanted to lead students to really think more deeply about the information in the article. I didn't want them to merely read just to answer some comprehension questions. In other words, I wanted them to do some reflection. There are several ways that students can do this. For example, they can explain what they found interesting or important in the article. Or, after reading the article, there might be something that they'd like to learn more about or that they'd like to research. Another good way to reflect on a passage is to apply it to their own lives. Also, they can agree or disagree with the author. When reflecting on the information in the article, they might be reminded of their own lives or family members or friends' lives. Or they might find something surprising in the article. If you do go to the link and download the unit, you'll first see a pre-reading activity. Of course, it's quite common to start with pre-reading activities to get students to start thinking about the topic. Instead of having students look at some pictures or section titles or first sentences, etc., like many reading books do, I take a different approach. Like I said, I want students to be reflecting on what they are reading. So the pre-reading activity has them read a short reflection by previous readers. This serves two purposes. First, it gives them an idea about what the article is about. And second, it serves as a model for what they should be thinking about as they read. After the pre-reading activity, students read the article and complete a variety of exercises, including some vocabulary ones. The culminating exercise is a reflection one that looks kind of like this. These are always interesting for the teacher to read. Naturally, you'll probably have some students who at first write kind of superficially, but the more they think about reflections as they read, the more insightful they tend to become. Other students click into this form from the very start. I'm often blown away by their depth and often unique perspectives. Recently, I had a student who had autism. She wasn't very verbal when I tried to engage her in small talk, but her reflections on the reading passages helped me see the really remarkable person she really was. As I mentioned, below is a link to a free download of the unit. You'll also find similar free units at that site. Also, for more discussions about teaching ESL, please visit my blog, Common Sense ESL. I'm planning to continue to add more videos about teaching ESL conversation, writing, reading, and grammar to my channel, Student Centered Teaching ESL by David Kehe. See you next time.